Yes, 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 yes. Hello, and welcome to another video. My name is Heather, and as always, I am reading with a vengeance, and I hope you are as well. Today, I wanted to talk about not only my favorite reads, but perhaps other people's not so stellar reviews of those reads. We all have our favorites. We all have those books that just stay in our hearts forever. And sometimes we just assume that everybody else loves those books too. So I thought I would humble myself and look through Goodreads at some of the 1-star reviews for books that I gave 5 stars to. This turned out to be such an entertaining rabbit hole to fall down. I had such a good time. If you have a few hours to spare, I highly recommend doing this, going into whichever platform you keep your books on and looking up your favorites and seeing the nasty things some people can say about it. If you don't take it personally, it can be a lot of fun. I had so much fun doing this, I might even turn this into a series because I decided to only pick 5 this time, but I might do it again. We'll see. I'm not going to name the reviewers because my goal here isn't to call anybody out or judge anybody or anything like that. I just wanted to share with you what they said about the books because I thought it was pretty entertaining. The first book that I'm going to talk about is actually a highly controversial book. I've mentioned this on one or two of my previous videos. I will always recommend this book, and that is All the Ugly and Wonderful Things by Bryn Greenwood. You've probably heard of this book because people talk about it all the time. Forgive Jake. This is one of those books that, as I said, I would recommend to anybody and everybody, but at the same time, it's not for everybody. This is a love it or hate it book. There is no in between here. Real quickly, this book follows Wavy. She is a young girl who is an abused daughter of meth dealers. And because her parents are losers, she is tasked with taking care of her younger brother. One day she witnesses a motorcycle accident and she goes and helps the guy, and it turns out that this guy, his name is Kellen, he is one of her father's motorcycle thugs, but while he does work for her dirtbag dad, he is one of those guys that has a heart of gold. They become friends, they form a relationship. It is a taboo relationship, and to be fair, I almost DNF'd this book when I read it. I was angry as I was reading it. It was that visceral. But I was curious because the writing is so good that you are invested in the characters quite quickly. So I continued reading it, ended up being one of my all-time favorite books. So if this is a book that interests you, I just look up the trigger warnings. I recommend it to everybody. Here are some of the 1-star reviews on one of my all-time favorite books. Let's pretend you have a little sister. Say she is 12 or 13. There's this big older guy she's been hanging out with lately, and you know he's at least 26 years old. You walk into her room, and there she is on a table, completely naked. He is sitting there, shirt off. What do you do? What do you think? What do you feel? This book should be in jail. The characters should be in jail. Every single thing in this book can go rot in a pile of poop. No matter how much perfume you spray on poop, it will still stink. The only wonderful things in this book are the writing, which I have to admit is incredible, and Amy and her family. The rest is ugly bullshit. Bryn Greenwood, fucking turn on your location, you piece of shit. I just want to fight you. It was actually well written. I loved the author's use of words, but it makes my stomach hurt and I would never read this again or recommend it to anyone. It was easy to read and a well-written book. But what trash? Honestly, WTF. I read this book nonstop, totally fascinated. I was unable to put it away. Does it mean it is a good book? Nope. Actually, it kind of does. As I flip through these reviews, so many say, beautifully written, really well put together. The writer really knows what she's doing. Such beautiful prose. And then in the same breath, just, oh, I hated it. Oh, such trash. And these are 1-star reviews. All I'll say about that is no judgment here. However, my feelings are, you don't have to like or condone the actions of the protagonist to highly rate a book or to appreciate the book. Some of the reviews said it was promoting pedophilia. I don't feel like it was doing that at all. I mean, all the murder, thriller, stabby books, those are not promoting murdering and stabbing. So you kind of, and some were saying that it was celebrating a relationship. I promise you there is nothing celebratory about this story. Anyways, I highly recommend it. The next book I'm going to talk about is my favorite Stephen King book. Now, Stephen King is one of my favorite authors. I have read most of what he has written. I'm still making my way through some of his older stuff. But my favorite of his is Bag of Bones. This follows Mike Noonan. He's a 40-ish writer, and he is still grieving the death of his wife, even though it's been 4 years since she died. He is dealing also with writer's block, and so he decides to go up to his childhood summer house and try to collect himself. And it's up, of course, in Maine. And while he's there, he befriends a young woman, a young widow, and her small daughter, and finds out that the millionaire who runs the town is trying to take the daughter away from this woman because he's the father-in-law. Mike decides to help this woman against this powerful man to keep her daughter. Meanwhile, in his home, he is haunted by the ghost of his wife. And while it's disturbing to him, it is helping him out of his writing block, and he starts to write more and more. So it's a conflict for him. There's all sorts of other stuff going on in this book. I absolutely love it. There's a lot of people who don't. So here's the first of some 1-star reviews. Insipid. Objectively, it might not be the worst, but I hated every second of it. It was a majestic bore. I don't know if King was on drugs when he wrote this. Probably. But I think he needed to up the dosage because this was hot trash. I read it a long time ago and hated it. Thought I'd give it another go, but it's the same verdict. Here's a fun one. Waffle and utter claptrap. What does that mean? Not as bad as Duma Key or Cujo, but what is? I liked both of those. Bag of shite. I love a long walk, but I require a destination in mind, and I am not one to take a circuitous route. This book is a slow wander with pointless turns that send you weaving in and out of the same square mile for days. It sounds like he's applying to Stephen King for a writing job. Scathing review, but well written. At first I was like, what? And then I was like, what? And now I can't remember a thing about the story. 2 words, shit sandwich. To be fair, I remember this taking me 100 pages to get into. And I know there's a lot of readers out there that once they reach a certain point, for some it's 50 pages, for some it's the first chapter. For me, it really depends on an author. It depends on a lot of things. I have a hard time DNFing. The older I get, the easier it is to DNF books. But I powered through this because it was my beloved Stephen King. And I'm so glad I did because there are layers upon layers and it's basically a good ghost story / love story. Absolutely loved it. The next book I want to talk about is Life of Pi by Yann Martel. This is another polarizing book. You either love it or you hate it. There's no meh about it. This follows Pi, and he is the son of a zookeeper in India. And due to the political violence going on in India at the time, they decided to set sail to Canada and start their zoo up in Canada. And they bring their animals with them. Halfway through the voyage, the ship sinks and Pi is left in a lifeboat with a hyena, a zebra, an orangutan, and a tiger. There's a lot more to it, obviously, but it basically tells how Pi survives out with these animals in a boat. The most fascinating thing about this book was the ending. It was a unique ending that I won't spoil, obviously. So stuff happens. Eventually he washes ashore and locals take him to a hospital where Pi has to answer to the authorities of what happened when this ship sank. And he tells them the story of what happened and they don't believe him. So he tells them the same story, but he replaces the animals with humans. And I can't remember which one's which, but the hyena is the chef on the boat who was mean. The zebra, he changes to, I think, a sailor. The orangutan becomes Pie's mother. And that becomes a more believable story for the authorities. And then I won't tell you anymore. Fascinating read. I really, really love this book. It's one of those books where I felt like they did a fantastic job with the movie. Beautiful movie. The way they shot it, really great. I really love them both. Here's some of the reviews for Life of Pi. I hated it. No, hang on. I still hate it. No past tense. I wish I read it with a tiger around. I wish the tiger had eaten me. This book made me like kids, animals, and whimsy even less. I could stop simply by saying that this might be the most overrated book ever written, but why stop at overrated when there are so many better, more deserving adjectives to use when discussing Life of Pi? Repugnant, vacuous, immoral, sycophantic, and at all times overbearing and preachy. I hate this book. There's nothing more to say. And then the review goes on for like 3 more paragraphs. Dude, I need a car chase or an explosion or a dropped glass of milk. Give me something to be concerned about. Did you read the back of the book? What precious bullshit is this? Really adventurous. Purple heart emoji, 100 emoji. It was a 1-star rating. Did you not understand the rating system? How can a situation in which a person is out to sea with a tiger be boring? The author accomplished this. The end of this book pissed a lot of people off, let me tell you, but I found it extremely unique. The next book I want to talk about is one of the few classics I absolutely love, and that's East of Eden by John Steinbeck. So this book follows 2 families, the Trasks and the Hamiltons, in California, Salinas Valley during I believe the turn of the century. It's like the late 1800s when it starts, and it spans a couple of decades because it is a family saga, which I love a good family saga. It's kind of a reenactment of the fall of Adam and Eve and the jealous relationship between Cain and Abel. There's even like a play on the names where the good characters have names that start with A and the evil characters have names that start with C. I found that pretty interesting. But there's love and betrayal and prostitution and here are some 1-star reviews to John Steinbeck's classic. I like Winnie the Pooh as much as the next person, but a novel where 75% of the characters are playing the role of Eeyore doesn't make for an enjoyable experience. I think Steinbeck is the reason so many people don't develop a passion for reading. The pressure for one author. Once upon a time, I read this book for pleasure. Turns out I hate pleasure. Kind of feels like those parties in undergrad where you're approached by that pretentious drunk guy who's just been exposed to the major theorists in ethics and morality. 0 wrestling scenes. What is the point of that? Why does the villain have to be a woman? Lots of the reviews that I read said dull, boring, and that just astounds me because this book read like a soap opera to me. And I mean a good soap opera. And the last book I want to talk about is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. And I picked this one because this is a booktube, bookstagram, book talk darling. And so curiosity really got the best of me because I loved this book like so many people did. But I even wondered, could there be 1-star reviews? There are, but there's less than 1%. So I thought that was interesting. Of course, Evelyn Hugo follows Monique, who is a struggling journalist, and she is offered a chance to interview a very famous Hollywood starlet in her later years, talking about her time in 50s glamour Hollywood, her fame, her love. She talks about scandal. Obviously, she's talking about the men that she married, but there's way more to it than that. This is a fantastic book. Here are some 1-star reviews. Worst read of the decade. Glucose gluttony. Unnecessary cussing. 3 in the first chapter. Who counts cuss words? Actually admire this woman for having 7 husbands. Yes, but probably for not the reasons you think. I should have known from the dedication line that this book was going to be awful. Patriarchy? Really? LOL. Last I checked, women and men have equal rights in everything. What world? I was really enjoying the story of old Hollywood. It was riveting. And then they hit you with the This book is what would happen in the dark of night at the Barnes & Noble if the shittiest romance novel in the store brushed up against Elizabeth Taylor's autobiography, and those two books somehow had a book baby. Did you know that Evelyn Hugo has breasts? Tits of the boob variety? We ought to focus on that, says Taylor Jenkins Reid, and then we do. Who published this? Someone actually read this book and thought, hey, other people need to read this. No, actually, yes. The best part about this book is that it came in large print, so it wasn't a strain on my eyes to read. I don't know how the woman who wrote Daisy Jones and the Six managed to also spew this out. Maybe she was drunk or hangry. Oh, so much fun. So those are the 5 books I decided to discuss that are all on my favorites list, but are way, way down the list on some other people. I hope you enjoyed listening to these 1-star reviews. This in no way is a video of me saying don't read these books. These are absolutely recommendations. I hope you had as much fun as I did reading these scathing reviews. Would you be interested in this being a series? I'd be more than happy to go down that rabbit hole every once in a while on a few books here and there. Let me know if it's something that you're interested in. Thank you for watching. I'd really appreciate it if you made it this far, if you gave me a little like and subscribe. I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.